So, good evening. We'll call this meeting to order of the North Bennington Graded School District Prudential Committee for June 27th, 2017. It's sort of the end of our fiscal year meeting, and hopefully we'll clear up any fiscal business we need to do, and there are some other things we need to talk about. So, first order of business would be public comments, but the chairs are silent, so we will move on. And where is my agenda? Because I'm lost. Okay. Executive session. That's the SDSU.
Oh, I'm sorry. Here.
Yeah. Thank you. Finance, Mary.
At the end of May, beginning of June, we had a cash balance of $378,000. In June, this is very preliminary, we have income, we have $14,151 of taxes. This is the true-up where we, the Village of North Bennington made payment to Mount Anthony based on the preliminary school report.
Yes, and
That always
reconciled,
happened.
yeah.
They reconciled. So the $12,000 came back from there.
Yes.
And then there was a slight other reconciliation that I had from the village. So there's $14,000 of money that went in to the fund there. We also have delinquent taxes that I have a check here that Lori just gave to me that we will have for this month. So we will have a total of a little over $8,000 in June for taxes, delinquent taxes collected. What we do in June is we try to get everything that's, normally what we do is we collect in one month, pay in another month. But since this is our month and year-end meeting, we're getting as much of that as we can. Yeah, so there'll be little, if anything, coming next month. We only have the one warrant that is due to be paid. Well, we had two. We had the quarterly treasurer and then the Southshire tuition, and then we had a couple of invoices for repair and maintenance, but that's actually going to be coming out of the
Well, we have,
other
yeah, okay.
that fund. So, but bottom line is, we should end up at the end of June with a little bit over $375,000 in the bank. However, we also want to move into the sinking fund the remainder, the balance of the $26,000 that was budgeted for this year. Last year is going to be restated so that we can get the $13,000 that should have been put in last year into that
So,
fund.
do you think we can do that tonight? We can authorize that tonight?
I believe it already was, because I believe Renee already verified with the auditors that they can do so. So they're planning to do so. Our cash can certainly accommodate that.
Yes.
If we wish to do so. The
Right.
third thing in that regard is I closed out the now Community Bank capital funds account that we had there that's been there since before my time.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to put that in the general fund. That will leave us at the end of this, well, on Friday, it will leave us with about $52,000 in that sinking
Can you
fund.
describe, just for the audience
Yes.
and for the rest of us, I know
Yes.
you sent,
Yes,
I think all of us, this information, but your proposal for how to deal with this,
right.
which makes a lot of
Okay.
sense.
Well, with the sinking fund, you can do a couple of things. You can take that money and you can put it in a separate bank account. You can just leave those funds in your general account and simply have an asset on your balance sheet that says of that total pool of money, this amount is reserved and can only be used for those restricted reasons. It seems easiest and most expeditious to do that because when you need to access that money, it's actually there. We're not going to another bank, getting a check, taking it to this bank, cashing it, putting it into the operating account so that a check can be written. Because obviously, all the checks will have to come out of that operating account.
And it conforms with the reality that most
Right.
money is digits and
Exactly.
letter sheets.
And really, this is the first experience in my short tenure that we've needed to use any of those restricted funds. So now that we are, it's not difficult at all to keep track of what you're spending them on.
Yeah.
And certainly that would be well documented at the SBSU level in our books. And it's also very easy for auditors to track and take care of that. So that's one thing that we needed to look at and make sure that we could fund those reserves and that those reserves would carry into next year. The second reason to know where we were going to end up at the end of this month is for our borrowing purposes. So I'm going to hand over to you guys the analysis that I had done at the beginning of the month based on the upcoming year's budget and where I expected the cash balance to be, which in this analysis, I expected our cash on hand to be $347,000. That $347,000 is after we take out the amount that we're holding for the restricted sinking funds. So we're not going to be spending the sinking funds except for the sinking fund purpose, not for this operating budget.
Right.
Last year, at this time, we had $260,000 in our bank account at the end of June. Therefore, based on this analysis, we will need to borrow, or we will need to have available to borrow, including a contingency, $248,000, which is the line of credit that is prepared here for your signature, which we'll do in just a second. Last year, we asked for $325,000 for that line of credit. We needed $140,000.
Right.
And I expect this year, we shouldn't need to dip into all $248,000, but it's there should we need it.
Yep.
What we did last year is we asked for a line of credit instead of a note, and that way we could just take out each month what we needed. It was paid in full by December 1st. It needs to be paid by December 30th, but we had the tax revenues to pay it off by the beginning of December. I would anticipate doing the same thing this year. It cost us to borrow those funds a little over $500. So, of course, we didn't get the income, the interest income, had we taken the $248,000 and put it in the bank and just let it sit there all year. But for I believe, and I'll have a detailed analysis tied out on this, but I believe it's a couple $100 more to do it this way, to do a line of credit, because you do pay a little bit higher interest, and you don't keep your money in the bank all that long. But it certainly is much neater and cleaner. It's taken care of. You're not making a lump sum at the end of the year when you've already dwindled down other of your reserves. So
Right.
I think that should work well. So this is the note for the line of credit that needs signatures. I'll put my signature on it here. There is also in here, there's three things here. Then there is non-arbitrage certificate for this borrowing. There is another certificate or certification that's very similar that just says that, one of them says that we will only use this, the funds here for the purposes that we said in this analysis that we're asking for the money for. And the other of them that you're going to be signing is just authorizing that I can actually go and draw on this line of credit when we need it. So 3 places for signatures, and Lori will need to go in 2 places, so I'll hand that around.
We need a resolution. Well, let me ask you one question. So the way to read this is your real need is in the cumulative
Yes.
column.
Yes,
So your maximum need is
120,000.
120 in November.
Yes. And then you build into their 5% overall
Margin, yeah.
margin.
Yeah. Well, that's
Which is
excellent.
why last year, we actually only needed to take 140,000
Yep.
of the amount that we
Yep.
we requested.
I'd make a motion to accept the proposed and recommended line of credit set up by Mary and the bank.
I'll second.
All right. Any comments or questions or discussion from the board? By the way, we didn't introduce ourselves, which we tried to make, I've tried to make a habit, so that the public knows who we are if they aren't familiar with us. So maybe we start with, before we get to the vote, we'll start with Tim and go this way.
I'm Tim Schrader, Prudential Community.
Matthew Patterson, Vice Chair.
Kimberly Kroll.
Ray Molyneux, Chairman.
Maria Scully.
Mary Rogers, treasurer. Lori Elwell, secretary.
Thank you. So, no comments, no questions. I'll call the question. All in favor of authorizing the line of credit loan, the non-arbitrage clause, and Mary as the person who's able to access these funds? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. Okay. All right. So you took into account everything that we had paid out, and you took into account the money that will go into the escrow. And basically, this takes into account the end of the year.
Yes.
Staff.
The only thing it didn't take into account was the fact that we have $5,000 more going in from delinquent taxes,
Yeah,
but I
well,
didn't know it at the time, so.
I'm more concerned
Yeah.
about stuff going out
Yeah,
than
yeah.
coming in.
And
but-
frankly, I wasn't sure if there might be something else
Yep.
that comes up at the end of the year, some repair or insurance or whatever it might happen
Well,
to be.
I think we paid the deductible on the insurance
Mm-hmm.
claim, so there won't be any more of that. And the expenses for doing the work on the bathrooms, assuming I can find a contractor, will be next year's expenses, I guess.
You know, I did have a question, though. Now I'm trying to find it. There was that, oh, it'll be in my file here somewhere. Where's my June book? That bill that came out that was part of the one that was paid to the village school. Okay, there was this Village School of North Bennington bill for maintenance services,
Yes,
$9,798.14.
yeah,
That said for the 16-17 school year, which is the year that we're right in.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then this same exact thing came out again for the 17-18 school year, true?
Yeah, but
It's the exact same numbers.
Yeah, it was improperly made and they fixed it. So I had to sign, I actually had to sign 12. I went and picked that check up and brought it
It
to
was
the
duplicated.
school. And they had had the wrong year the first time.
Yeah, okay.
I had to sign a thing that said I acknowledge that they rewrote the check. So it's supposed to be this year.
Okay, because the very first one we had was 1617, which is correct. And then one that just came out in an email yesterday had 1718.
Maybe
Yeah,
that
that's
was a
same
resending of
expenses.
Right,
We're not paying them twice. so.
no, but I was just confused because.
I
are
didn't
we-
even see that, so I'm
Yeah,
glad
are we
you brought
doing
it
this, so this, the one that says 1718, just ignore. We're not doing that
up. No,
in the next year also.
no.
And I'm pretty sure that
Okay.
that the central office understood that we wanted to get this done because it was completing this year.
Well,
Right.
And I had, and that, what they ended up doing is sending out again the copy of the wrong one. I think.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
think what you did is sign the wrong one at one time.
the one that was
I never
signed
signed
is.
the wrong one.
The one that was signed is this one, because I took this copy when I signed the check. And it
I
says the
came up with
16,
those
17
figures,
year.
so-
That's the one I,
Yes.
right.
Yeah,
So then an email just came out with something attached to it that I thought said it was a revision, but it said 1718.
yeah.
Ignore it. We'll fix it.
Okay.
It shouldn't be paid next year if
It's already
it can be
been
paid
paid.
now.
It's already
because
been paid.
Yes.
I was just
Yeah.
confused as to
We're
why
not
there were
paying
two
it.
with two different years.
I don't understand that
Okay.
myself. Matt seems to understand it, but,
Well, I was told
Okay.
what I was to understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I signed a thing that I saw that there was a mistake on that one. They issued a
okay.
new one, and I signed it.
Okay,
Yep.
we just have to make sure that when
You don't
this is
have a-
accounted for,
Right. You don't have a copy with my signature on it, right?
no.
No.
all
Well,
right.
that'll actually be in the, well, we don't have to.
I don't
Is it
have,
in there?
I didn't see it in here. This is
'Cause he said
last
he was
time.
sending it
Well,
along.
we haven't approved the one that we did. I don't have a copy of the one that would have been approved. Oh yeah, this is the one that you signed.
Yep. What's,
Well, it's just the total page, doesn't,
on the top there, what's the date?
6/15.
Oh. Yeah, I don't know.
And when I signed that
If there was a way
check,
that I could have screwed it up, I probably did. but
no,
don't think
when
it
I
was my-
signed
I
that
don't
check,
think it
when
was
I
my
signed
fault.
that check, the backup, the document that was on it said 1617.
Yes,
Then one just came out that said 1718.
So take
We'll
that
just
up with-
ignore it.
With one of the guys over there.
Okay.
Just make sure that there's not
Okay.
a misunderstanding.
Right. So,
So
that
sign
leaves
it.
me. What?
So sign it.
Yeah, right.
Didn't we already?
Yeah, we already approved it, so now we need to sign it. The document, oh, it's sitting right in
Yes.
front of me.
She's sitting right there. I was waiting for them.
All three.
I'm-
There's
I'm
three
giving
little-
instruction to myself,
There's three little things there, so get them all.
and all of us have to sign it.
Yes, please.
I counted, there's room.
You want to start on this? All right. The next item of business is the consent agenda, on which there were. No, it's not in here, okay. Minutes from April, two meetings in April. We didn't have a meeting in May. And the warrants, all the warrants that I've signed for since the April warrants, May and June, and Matthew signed one in June, to ratify those warrants that we signed, and the checks have already gone out. But, it's useful just to have us all say yes. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. One typo, it's in the earlier minutes. I think it's VSBA, not ISBA. I think it's just a typo. You'll move it.
I'll move it.
Matthew moves it.
I'll second it.
Maria seconds. Any discussion about any of those things? All in favor? Aye. Okay. Summer facility projects, well, I don't have much to say. I went downstairs and looked at the gym, I didn't see anything going on. And although I told the insurance company to deal with the contractor, he said they were, I guess I heard through Tim Newbold that he was having trouble getting them to call him, respond to him.
Well, you remember what happened was the adjuster that came to this was retiring 2 weeks after.
I don't think that's it anymore. I think-
No.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's a new person, obviously.
Yeah, and there was an engineer who came by later on to look at it, but he said, of course, I can't tell anything till it's open, so he'll come back then.
Well, it's kind of supposed to be out of our hands now, but I guess it's not.
Well,
It's a-
Yeah, I mean, it's,
something we have to make
it's,
sure gets done.
it's in the hands of the insurance company. They're the oversight here. We just get antsy because we don't have a long time
No.
before school starts again.
And did you manage to get, or did Tim manage to get the contractor that's doing that to look at the bathroom?
I had already sent him
The document?
the documents electronically, and I'd sent them through Katie, who's his daughter, to give them the actual documents. So he has the contract, the specifications and the drawings. And I was hoping he would give us a proposal, but that hasn't happened yet either, which may be because nothing's happening downstairs yet.
Contractors are few and far between right now.
Yeah, that's right. And I've talked to another contractor, and he's too busy. And then I've got a third one that I've talked to, and he keeps promising me a proposal, and he hasn't gotten me one yet. So before I leave, I hope I get it.
Well, you could leave a message to be in touch with me
Yep.
if, in
I
your
will do
final
so.
attempt to.
So,
At this point, the gym needs to get done. I
yes,
would think, if it's gonna be done at all.
yep.
The bathroom, if had to, could wait.
Well, the bathroom will serve another year if necessary, although it's increasingly shabby.
Mhm.
Because I clean it, so I know what it looks like. And I know that, try as I may, it has a certain ineffable odor about it.
Well,
So,
let's push a
yep.
little harder and,
Yep, well,
worst scenario ready when I could do it, I suppose.
yep. Superintendent's report, we don't have one. Chair's report, well, there's a lot of little items here, I don't know how long this is gonna take. Actually, why don't we do policies first? Let's get that out of the way. There are a bunch of policies down there, number 8, to warn. And I assume we will warn them, and if we have any point to make about them, we can make it after they're warned. To our representative.
Well,
on
the
policy
last two
board.
policies aren't even done being written, so I wouldn't warn them.
Transportation
And
and FMLA.
FMLA, yeah.
Anything about A through D that we should,
No, mostly, in fact, all, I think, are just There's no changes at all, so,
Great options.
yeah.
The readoptions,
The AOE was requesting it, so.
readoptions.
Yeah,
I
readoptions.
would
They were
do-
all like 2016, so I don't know why, but there's no cross-throughs.
I would make a motion to adopt A through D, that being 5411, comprehensive HIV and bloodborne pathogen. 1100, fixed asset policy. 4121, travel reimbursement. 3115, prevention of conflict of interest in procurement. And we'll hold off on the other two, because your recommendation that they're not yet fully baked.
So need a second.
I'll second.
All right. Kim seconds, and I assume there's no discussion, so I'll call the question.
Aye.
All in
Aye.
favor? Aye. Okay, and 3100 transportation and 4327 family and medical leave, we are going to leave on the table for further surgery on them.
Yes. Extensive surgery, apparently.
What?
Extensive surgery.
Okay.
It's bad.
Okay.
I'll get back to you on that.
Thank you, Maria. So we go back to the chair's report. And what is, oh, wait, before we do that, number 10, 6141? If these are administrative regs for the computer network and internet acceptable use?
This is from the meeting I was at. I'm sorry, I was not there in May. Let me see if I have any notes on it.
Well, we don't have anything to do with it, it's just
It's
review.
just administrative.
And I don't, it has
Yeah.
nothing to do with us, so.
Yep. So that's, I'm just ticking that off the agenda. It's there, you can look at it, and we don't have to approve it or anything. So among that whole list of items here, shall we tackle the audit first?
Audit?
Yeah.
E.
Oh,
Okay, so the thing to remember about these audits is, that's not the one I want. Okay, so I unfortunately didn't realize what I was sending you. I sent you the cover letter to the SVSU audit. And it has some management responses in it to remarks that the auditors made, which, none of which except one might concern us because it's about a fund like our building capital fund. But apparently the auditors have been satisfied that the way we've done this, and it's not just our district, it's other districts, is acceptable. And what we've done is we've budgeted for these funds to be set aside for larger building expenses that come along that we haven't budgeted for, and then put it into our annual meeting budget for approval by the community, and that has been the authorization for establishing that fund. And they've determined that that passes muster, which I can't see why it wouldn't pass muster. So that's the takeaway from that. But then there is the actual audit itself for our district. What's going on here? Oh, it's not on. Is that shiny?
Yep.
Yes, okay. All right, thanks. And you have to read, basically you want to read the auditor's letter and realize that the audit is divided into two very distinct parts: what the auditor has done and what the business office has done. And most of the report is what the business office has done. And the auditors tell you how limited their approval or is in terms of what they've looked at, what they've tested, and what they will be willing to stick their necks out on as being accurate. So at the end of our audit, pages 41 and 42, there's a 2-page letter from them that is some of the most dense gobbledygook you can read, that says, well, basically, we don't evaluate your system of internal controls. We just see what it is in order to ascertain whether there's any impact on the veracity or the truthfulness of the statements that are put out that have financial information on them. And as far as I can tell, none. And so it's always puzzled me why we are forced to spend the kind of money we are forced to spend on these things when they tell us so little. That is completely backed up by the auditors. Basically, you're relying on the business office to be truthful. That's what I think. And I just find that kind of a strange little ritual we go through every year, and we spend a lot of money on it.
But we're required to, right?
Yep,
So-
we are required to. And they even required it in such a way that they took it out of our hands and said, the SU has to do it, and then you have to pay them back for it, so.
It's 'cause bankers make laws in this country.
Yep. So, however, there is some interesting information in this, looking it over. One, I looked at the information on fund balance. That's always important to us in terms of next year's budget and next year's tax rate. And does that jive with what we put into the
I
budget?
haven't seen
I haven't
this, so
seen
I
that
don't,
either.
Okay.
know what it
Well,
says.
it's on the website.
yeah.
I have it. So
No,
here
I looked at that.
on capital asset and long-term debt activity, oh no, it's the wrong page. It looked like the same page, but it's the wrong page. There is one that is strictly on the other thing is you can go to sleep trying to find something in
Or,
it too.
yeah.
Especially if you haven't. Fund balances. No, fiduciary. I'm sorry about this, but it's crazy. Fund balance. Lengthy discussions of what these terms mean. And I can't find this damn thing. Capital assets. Okay, here it is. I don't know where it is.
I've got, on page 37. of
Yeah,
last
that's not
year's-
the one I was looking for, though. It's actually a summary of 2 years side by side of the total fund balances.
Well, so the point was made by Mary that, well,
Well, what we have as a cash balance is not necessarily going to be your fund
Fund
balance.
balance, right. Okay, so one thing I did see, this is not the fund balance, but I saw that what they carry on the books at the end of last year for the capital fund account that we've just been talking about is $44,000. And yet, what we have in our account was 27, and now we're going to be up to
This was for the end of last year?
end of last year, I guess.
It was 44, I have no idea where that would come from.
Okay, neither do I, so.
Yeah.
And
I'd
you're
have
saying,
to look
you're
at
saying
that.
we will end up with about 52.
Well, from what we have in cash, we were supposed to have
here.
13 from last year's budget. We were supposed to have,
Right here, 44,
Yes.
44, 21, yeah.
I just emailed
So-
you that.
okay,
So I guess the question is, once we've established what the fund is at the end
Yeah.
of this year, can we tie it back to this number?
yeah,
In
I'll
some
have
way.
to,
Yeah,
I can certainly go and ask and see
yeah.
what's in there. Now, maybe, I don't,
It's best
I
not to
don't know.
hazard a guess.
yeah, I don't know.
I don't really know what happened. Here, is this it? No, it's capital assets still.
I think that's-
Fund balances. It's page 11 on this. So, at the end of 2016 fiscal year, that's last June, the general fund balance was 356,666. And then that included it's unclear whether they're including the capital projects fund in that, or
I'm
it's
gonna
a separate
guess it
item.
was.
I assume it would be, yes. So 44,000 of that was the capital projects fund. And of that fund balance, 86,000 was assigned, 44,000 of that would be the capital projects fund. And the balance, 262,000, was unassigned. And that would mean.
Well, 260 is about what we had in cash.
Yeah. At any rate, what we have showing for a fund balance sitting in our income statement is 227 or something like that for this year's fiscal year 17. Yeah. So that looks about right. At any rate, 216, that fund balance ends up being applied to 18. And I guess what I need to do is go look at our budget and see if that looks right. We've got what we expected to see in that budget. But it looks to me like it's fairly healthy. I mean, we've gone in 3 years from very minimal amount to a good, healthy surplus again. And I think from looking at the budget document we have for this month, budget status report.
For this month, yeah, the fund
Yeah.
balance on this one is 227.
Right. And there's always a portion of that surplus that's for another year. Right, so it's for the, but we show here on the income side of things, we show a balance uncollected as yet, or unused, not in the budget either revenue that we're expecting or fund balance that we haven't applied, of 300,000, 303,000, which, most of which we won't see because some of that comes from the state. But the fund balance is 227, and we do see that, we have that, and to carry over. And then if you look at the final bottom line on the expense budget, we are 294,000 underspent at the moment. And I think that accounted for everything we were going to spend, as I recall. I didn't see anything that was unaccounted for. So that looks like a really healthy fund balance to carry on
You're not
into.
gonna be billed anything for transportation, right?
No,
No.
no,
And we haven't needed to use contingency monies,
no.
so.
At any rate, my point is, I think we're in a very strong position coming out of this year.
That's great.
Um,
Could that possibly have been said?
What?
Could that possibly have been said a little, in a shorter manner? Because I wasn't following much. I'm sorry. Okay.
Well, you got two things. You got your revenue and you got your
Yeah.
expenses. The
And we're
fact
doing
that
good on
there's,
both,
Ray, I
so
thank
there
you
you
both
go.
for really taking good hard looks at this, and in fact, as we'll probably talk about later, it's paid off.
yeah, I think we're doing pretty well. Now, the other elements that were on this,
What's that?
This report, I couldn't find it.
Yeah, I can't find that report.
it's, you have to go to the SVSU site,
Yeah.
look at reports, and then their audits go for 2016.
Go to SVSU reports, then it breaks
okay.
it down by district. and then
Right,
there's-
then you
Okay.
go to the district,
for 2016.
and it's 42
it.
pages long,
Okay.
so
Okay,
Yeah, let's not read it.
okay.
we're not reading. I think I said everything that the auditor would have said,
Good.
only I was sarcastic about it, I know that. The situation for enrollments for next year, residencies, from what I can tell, Tim thinks that we are going to hit right around that 117 target. I'm not sure till it all happens, so. And I think, I think I said in my email that I see an ADM for K-6 of about 136, which is considerably higher than we're rising. The last 2 years we've been going up. And then there's still the pre-K, because that's a separate item. And we ended up with 39 students in pre-K.
Yeah,
At least that's what I saw in the last report.
we have
Waiting list.
We have a
full.
huge, well, I mean, it's a huge, the district has a huge number, and the village school has a waiting list, so the program is growing rapidly.
But that's also where we didn't anticipate necessarily enough funds, right? That's where we get hit with, or at least where we got hit last year when.
If this budget sense report was correct, we paid all our tuitions and our assessment for the administration of the early childhood program, and we're still with this kind of money left over, so. Next year, if it keeps going up, obviously.
My question, I guess, is this, since it's just a theoretical one. If this village school decided that they wanted to do what was necessary to increase capacity,
Mhm.
and I don't know if that's even possible, but whether they'd have to get more space approved and do all the things they did, but if they did that and increased their capacity, that would end up coming back to us as an expense.
Yes.
Right.
we'd be paying those tuitions.
But in the short term, it hurts, but in the long term, it's to it.
Well, it's growth in the district population, and we're the only district seeing that kind of growth, so. It may sprawl out from here, because other districts are, Bennington's got a pretty strong hit on pre-K, but other districts, like Pownell, I think, was lagging behind a little bit in numbers. But it's a good thing for us. I think it's having a positive impact in our community, and at least that's my belief. So I typically deal with all the residency applications and deal with Jim Kosis at the central office, because he received some of them, and approve them. I will be modifying the residency application affidavit a little bit, because I think it's it's got some questions we don't need,
Overly
don't do any,
burdensome.
don't help. And also for people who have filled one out already, I think I can help them out by sending them what they filled out and a research to say this is correct, or these changes need to be made, sign it.
Having filled
That'll be
them out,
enough.
they were a little redundant.
Yeah,
You fill
well,
out the
also,
village school,
I could.
And then it's the same thing, which obviously you're talking to two different entities, but. you
Which,
know,
oh, yes, right.
You do the same thing for the school and for the board. So it's, just a note. Speaking as
Well,
a parent.
it's a
But-
matter of what information I can get from the
Exactly.
parties.
And
you know.
it's going to different
That's right.
entities, so you do kind of
I'd
need
be
to
happy
do
to
that.
accept what the intake is for the village school, but they won't give me that, so.
Yeah.
I
and you
have to
can't
do
really
this
that.
separately.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea, that the vast majority of people who were here before simply just have to recertify and sign.
Yeah.
Yes,
It's just a legal affidavit. that
I
they-
think so too.
Yeah, the first time around, you really do have to do it, though.
Well,
Yes.
and-
Yeah.
And we need to verify that you really live here.
I do. I
And,
swear.
and the residency affidavit does tell you some of the legal requirements. You are required to report if you move,
Mhm.
because the state requires that.
Mhm.
I require that, because I've got to know.
Taxpayers
you know.
require.
I got to pay for you,
Mhm.
or not pay for you anymore, whichever. Okay, so I think it's, we're going to have growth again this coming year, I think.
The kindergarten is big.
How many do you have in kindergarten?
I don't know, 30.
What?
Feels like that. I got a new one, another new one yesterday.
23?
Yeah.
23. Wow.
Yeah.
Any girls this year?
A couple more, yeah, than last year. It's a little more split, but there's still more boys. Lots
Okay.
of boys
Something
for a couple years.
more.
All right, so then there's two other items to talk about. One is this, whether we want to participate in this Alliance of Vermont School Board Members. I sent around what information I have about them.
Did you hear back from anybody?
No.
I would resend what you sent. I
Mhm.
sent it back to you, right? You did?
Yeah.
It
Right.
was a good letter expressing our interest in being involved with an advocacy group that advocates for schools rather than state boards and departments. This is all coming as light of when the State School Board Association basically became a mouthpiece for the State Board of Education and the Department of, as they're training the people to come into these communities and do the Act 46 things. This is, I think it was pretty prescient of us to have left that organization when we did, because we knew that they expressed a lack of support for what we did in this community. And I think now they're going to find a lot of other districts doing the same. And anything we can do, I think, to be in alliance of supporting other small schools that are trying to find creative, inventive ways to educate kids. That would be better than supporting the group that is trying to do quite the opposite.
So, I don't know, does anybody have a burning desire to go to a meeting whenever there is one?
Well, where are
That's
the
where the
meetings?
I don't know, we don't
any-
know.
That's what I mean, I felt like it was too vague
Yeah.
Yeah.
to comment or commit.
They've had a few just informal gatherings. I think we'll find out more and certainly urge them to continue. But yeah, I mean, I think we'll hear when they have one and then decide whether we can, if any of us can go. If I can, I will.
I don't think we need to appoint someone.
No.
But
We'll just-
I think we can just keep the rest of the board informed
Mhm.
and try to get a group together, you know,
Yeah.
to go to anything that they put together. Before we hit the Act 46 study business again, I sent you some information about the fact that our equalized pupil count, or actually our ADM count for FY 16-17 was, and for the previous year, and possibly for the year before that, was shortchanged because of a confusion about kids going to Shaftesbury School. And I'm sort of, Matt and I haven't really done anything about it yet. I have asked that there be some review of procedures and that we know what they're going to do to ensure this doesn't happen again. But I find it a little unsettling that a mistake like this gets made and they just say, well, you have to eat it down there. Given all the concern about property taxes, it affects our property taxes by 3 or 4 cents maybe. So that's not huge, but it's, for some people, it would be important. All those taxpayers.
Well, it's important because the state's had been going around touting our cost per pupil as a means of arguing against what we've done, and their numbers were wrong. We knew they were anyway, we just didn't know why. This is part of it, is that there was $70,000 that we should have in that fund balance right now. It isn't there.
Right.
And the SU's position is, sorry, we can't, there's really not much we can do. Well, actually, no. The
That's
state's
not their position.
The state's position was, sorry, there's nothing we can do.
Right.
The SU told us they'd get back to us regarding any possible solution.
And so is that where we are in a holding pattern waiting? for
Yeah,
them?
we haven't even heard back from our
Okay.
secondary inquiry that day. This has now been 3 weeks.
I've just pushed it again and I got a response from Jim that he and Renee were going to check into it some more, because there's some additional information there.
Well, my point was, we gotta be made whole somehow, and it would seem that that's what we have error and omission insurance for. Question is who made the errors and the omissions. So,
You actually have error and omission
we don't,
insurance?
but the SU does,
Okay.
and we pay for it.
Yep.
I mean, right, so, I don't wanna have to go that way, but I'm not sure there's any other way. What, the state comes down and just inform them, that they also have to cut, with that number, it changed a little bit, but at least $200,000 from their budget.
Yeah, well,
Because
we
of
did
13
perform
million.
an exercise on that back when
When
it was
18
first
million.
being discussed, and I think the result was that everybody that was in that position, because they had employees that they had contracts with about health insurance coverage, was able to find ways of funding that change in receipts without touching the collective bargaining agreement.
No, I know.
Agreements.
But isn't that interesting? They can find that.
Mhm.
They can find a couple $100,000 at a night meeting, but money that's actually owed to us. Yeah,
Well, it's not owed by them, it's owed by the state.
this is correct. It is the state. And, I know, we've reached out to our attorney.
How are we going to make sure that this doesn't happen this year?
Well, I'm trying to ask them for their procedure, how they're going to ensure it doesn't happen, because it seems to me it shouldn't have happened at all. That, you know, they're checking these numbers, they receive the numbers from me, so they know who our students are, and yet 4 students got lost, dropped. And it's not like Shasberry got credit for them. They didn't. We paid Shasberry. But no one got credit for them. So that's an odd situation. You know, the state is always talking about we're hemorrhaging students, and then they just drop 4 students. And who knows, this may happen all over the state. I don't know. I really don't know, because I don't see that kind of information. But for us, we're a small district. That's about 4% of our students. So
At any rate, I think we can move on from that.
Yep.
and wait and hear what-
So Act 46. I went to the second meeting of the formal study committee just to listen. And I listened to a presentation by Donna Russo Savage from the Agency of Education, and then Dan French, who was formerly the superintendent for Bennington Rutland Supervisory Union, who was there giving his job interview for being the consultant for this study committee. And I don't think there was nothing really new from Donna Russo Savage. I had heard it before back in October when it was a general public meeting at the firehouse in Bennington. What did I say? I sent some notes, my remarks about what I did hear, which I still heard that this district is, because we are not the same in operating structure as the other districts, we can remain the way we are, and we have no partners, so we're going to end up ultimately in some sort of side-by-side arrangement, or perhaps orphaned with using their services for administrative aspects of our operation. That was one thing. And then I learned something about, you know, what they can hope to achieve. And it seemed to me that that she talked about the MUD, the Modified Unified Union School District, or as a default, not a position you can actually put out to vote. It's a fallback position if you go for a unified union school district, which would be K-12, including elementary and the secondary schools in one unified union, one board. And if you fail on that, then you fall back to the modified version of that, which would allow districts that voted against it or districts that didn't vote at all, as presumably we would if it came to that, to continue to participate in the administration of the secondary system. And other than that, I didn't really learn a whole lot, because I think it left some questions unanswered that didn't get asked because other people have, the other districts don't have the same view of things that we do. And our interest is that kids have some choice at the secondary level, if they need it, I think most kids would go to Mount Anthony and do fine, have a good experience, and have lots of opportunities, especially if they're kids who are interested in the AP classes, I think, the higher level classes.
And the sports.
And sports and other sorts of activities. There's lots to do there. But some kids aren't going to be successful that way. We know that. So we'd like to have every kid be successful, or at least have the opportunity to be successful, and that seems to us to require more opportunities. So, but I don't think they're interested in that, and I don't want to hold them back, but I really would like them to think a little more broadly, and I suspect that's not going to happen under this structure. I'm not sure what they're going to come up with, but it's still my impression that at the moment, two things. Lori in the minutes referred to this as a stipulation that I made back in April, I think, that, I think we have to wait until we're sure that we would only be included as a advisable district, which would allow us to not have to vote on their proposal and not block. That would keep us from blocking anything that they choose to do, that they vote to do. What was the other thing? I think that was the main thing, actually, the stipulation.
We're going to have a hybrid structure of governance.
Right.
And really more importantly, if we've entered into some of these other difficult discussions regarding needs of other children, particular children needing other needs, I think that's an important one too. And
Yeah.
it's just come to the clarity has come that there is absolutely no reason for us to join this organization, and a lot of reasons why, not to join the organization, to join the committee, and a lot of reasons why not. And the main thing is to remain undifferentiated as long as possible from a legal standpoint, which might allow us some opportunity at the end as everything kind of coalesces at the state level. I think if we join this committee, even under those conditions, we are saying that we're putting our eggs in the basket, and would change any possible legal challenges we might have to alternatives that might arise at the very end, as we see many other schools that will be attempting. We've seen these successful mergers, they were the easy ones, so now we're going to see a lot more. And each one of them are going to be unique in some way. They're going to have a take on it that's unique to their situation. And I suspect that will bring to light some other possibilities. And I think we owe it to our community to hold out for some other possibility as long as we can.
It just seems to me that if you can't vote on a mud, and the only way we can be in is a mud,
Yeah,
then
yeah.
we're automatically dooming them if we join.
Exactly.
That's what
Them and us.
So,
So, yeah.
This is the new information that comes
Yeah.
around, where we,
Yep.
the last time it was like, well, we really should join because, and it's like, no.
We wanna have a say.
It's,
But,
they have to try to do something, and if it can't be mud, it's gotta be something that we can't be a part of. Unless they think way out of the box and wanna do an alternative structure, which involves all the extra documentation and all this stuff, which would be great. I'd be love to talk to, them about alternative structures if they wanted to. But they got, we all have 3 months, and they have to have something together.
Yes. And
I wish they would just start talking about those issues rather than.
Now, they hired Dan French to be the consultant, and he's very good at
Very confident.
knowing what is possible. He knows the law, he's worked on it, and
He's a good
he's
sheet
got a
writer,
very
too.
facile mind about various possibilities. So maybe he will tease something out of this that no one's teased out of it yet. But I think there's still, in the group, I believe there is still an interest of some districts to, why can't we just stay the way we are? And that approach to just saying, as our report to the state board, to tout what we are, and that we're as efficient and consolidated as we need to be in order to accomplish the goals of the act. And the other option is to figure out, either Donna Russo-Savage talked about an elementary unified union to go with Mount Anthony. But I'm not convinced that they couldn't actually just do a unified union of the whole if they wanted to. But I don't know what they're going to do, because I don't see a clear direction, even
No,
though.
I think we need to stop wasting breath on it, too. I mean, we go round and round, 3 years now. Now it's time to just let the process go.
Yeah. Well, speaking of deadlines, though, we do have to think about that. Because if we're not part of that process, we are going to have to produce our own report to the State Board of Education, are we not?
I'm not so sure. If they've already told us there's only one,
Yeah.
if we wanted to propose something radically different than the default, then yes. But, it would be good courtesy to send them a letter telling them thank you, but no. But other than that, it'd be an opportunity to help kind of hone our message about who we are and why we think what we are is good enough. I'm not sure. At any rate, I don't think that's something that any of us individually can write. We would need some,
We would need our own consultant.
I think so. Somebody not employed by the Department of Ed.
Mhm.
Somebody who kind of has that vision of defining,
Do we know anybody?
perhaps. We could ask around.
I don't think we lose much by trying to have a report.
Right, once I agree. We need to understand what it is they're asking. Okay. So boards that are putting forth and asking for approval of a given thing are just throwing down these boilerplates that have been written in a couple derivations for different districts. That's what French will have.
Yeah.
That'll make it
They will
easier
have
for them.
access to what's been done and
What's been
proposed.
done and basically building on what was, and then the particulars will be put in there, the finances of the individual. districts within that community, and some sort of description of the implications that this might have on improving student outcome and access and equity and quality. But I don't know what to expect. I mean, I guess we can put forth the same. It's unclear. But, you know,
Well, maybe we could use this alliance to figure this out.
right.
Because as I see the clientele for that, it's people who find themselves in very similar position. They don't know what to do, and they're facing the end of the term here. And they need to figure out a way to
See
go.
Representative Hebert resigned,
No.
effective Friday.
Well, there was another guy who resigned from Milton.
Oh, who was that? Maybe I was thinking it was.
I think that's whom you're thinking of,
Ah.
actually.
I take that back. I read that quickly. That one? At any
So,
rate.
I don't know, maybe we ought to have just a kind of a retreat among ourselves, but not in July, about this.
And maybe get the village school involved too, and maybe some of what the work they've done is in their own accreditation attempts and stuff.
Yeah.
It's good information to bring forth in the. But again, I can't even envision the architecture of what that would look like.
So what do you guys think? Shall we try to do that? I mean, granted, we're not going to step on July, but maybe in August, we'll see if we
Maybe.
have a conversation.
By then, we may hear back from the Alliance.
And we may know, and
more.
we also may know more from the study committee, what they're going to do.
Right.
Because they have to hustle.
They have another meeting Thursday?
This
29th?
Thursday? Yeah.
I think so.
Well, I won't be there, so.
Go observe.
If Bruce can go, that would be a good thing.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it
I would double check on that, but I think I saw it on the calendar.
Any of you are welcome to go, just to observe.
So, Chair, is there anything else on this?
Nothing.
Then I would make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, wait a second. One other thing.
Okay.
Could we have a very brief executive session
I would make a motion to go into executive session
for a student matter?
for a student matter.
Yeah.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.